Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to wait for people to start dropping in, so we'll just give it a minute or two to watch people start joining. They're coming in slowly. We'll just wait, give it a minute, let everyone get in. There we go. It's going to be a good webinar today. Right, let's just see who else is joining us. We'll give it a minute or two. People to start dropping in. Okay. There's a few people dropping in. Give it another second to let everybody join. Okay, let's get started. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Sarah Mann, your host for today, and I'm excited to introduce you to our speaker, Andrew Fahey. Andrew is the CEO of Briars, a company that has been helping organisations expand their operations internationally for over 30 years, supporting more than 3,000 businesses in over 150 countries. Andrew brings over 2 decades of leadership experience in high-growth, technology-driven businesses, including working with leading private equity firms like TPG and the Riverside Group. His extensive expertise spans acquisitions, international mergers, and guided businesses through the complexities of global expansion. Today, Andrew will share his invaluable insights on the challenges and opportunities of expanding globally. If you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A box and we will answer as many as possible as we go and at the end. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, guys. So, well, thank you for the kind introduction. I'll just add a little more to that. So, I am Andrew Fahey. I'm the CEO of Briars, and we are a virtual non-exec member. And very pleased to be talking to you today about how we can unlock value in your portfolio companies through global expansion. So, hopefully, whether you're a non-exec director looking to bring a little bit more challenge to the management teams, or you're an investor looking to accelerate growth, hopefully there'll be some useful content in here today. A little background about myself. So I spent all of my career in and around professional services across running accounting firms, legal firms, financial services, and HR. Initially, that was just in the UK, and then to the latter part of my career, that's progressed internationally. And over that career, I've had the opportunity to complete an MBO, multiple PE exits, M&A in the UK and internationally, public market, private fishing exercise, and merged my business with a US firm where I transitioned to their global leadership team. So when we merged that business, both culturally, well, did we merge it culturally? Different story. We merged it operationally, definitely. And along that journey, had the opportunity to work with many non-exec directors, challenging myself and the team to make us better. And hopefully we give you some insights to do that to your teams today. And ultimately, whether you're an investor or a NED, we all want the same things. We want our companies to grow more quickly. And we're going to talk about how hopefully global expansion can be one of those strategies that supports that and ultimately value generation as well. So who are Briars? Well, really simply, we help companies expand internationally by providing a complete range of outsourced professional services. And these services have just been designed to take all those regulatory headaches away or risks for businesses who want to trade in multiple regions. So that business can just focus on what they do best. We've been doing it for 30 years, helped over 3,000 businesses, and those businesses have grown over 150 different countries. And those services start from sort of fractional leadership, where we help plan the journey, to delivering full outsourced professional services in accounting, tax, and HR. We're sector agnostic. Around 40% of our clients are UK based, which have gone and expanded globally. 40% are North American businesses who've come into Europe, and then the balancing 20% are just weird and wonderful businesses that have gone here, there, and everywhere. Now, one of the commonalities we find with our clients is that they're all approaching or have recently had external investment. So there's someone or some strategy that's behind them, driving them to go more quickly and sell more things to more people, which ultimately leads to them going into different territories. And quite often they feel unsupported or they can't cope with the overhead or the complexity of this. So our services have been tailored to make sure these businesses can grow quickly, but we block and tackle, and I use block and tackle for our North American clients of all the problems they have. And in addition to the services, we've also structured our fees to be really empathetic to investor-backed businesses as well. So we have a subscription-based business, so it's just more appealing and it helps businesses maximize the EBITDA growth. And I won't spend too much time on this at all, but just to sort of complete the background, this is how we think of our services. We have corporate services where we provide all the accounting, tax, and compliance elements. We have people services where we take care of HR, global mobility. And we have payroll services where we either do traditional payroll or we employ the workers where they don't want to be engaged themselves. And then workforce services. So as a business grows, its workforce becomes more complicated. It has employed, self-employed, it has fractional staff. So we look after that whole plethora of workforce dynamics for our clients too. So what we'll be covering today. So we're going to start by talking about, well, how the overhead changes when you adapt to a new investor relationship. And how when you do this, it brings a growth challenge, which sounds a little odd, but usually businesses have committed to something that's more aggressive than they've ever done before, which brings pressure. We're then going to go into how global expansion could potentially be one of those avenues to explore that helps drive both top line growth and bottom line EBITDA growth. But as you do this, what are the challenges that come with expanding globally? And then we're going to look into how we can potentially help your portfolio companies both accelerate growth, and we're going to go for a little case study and some key takeaways. And if there's any questions, we're more than happy to dive into those as well. So if we sort of start off by setting the scene, I said earlier that lots of our clients are newly invested in, and it's worth just spending a little moment talking about how that environment changes and how it ultimately impacts growth. And once you have a private equity or an investor-backed ownership, there's just new levels of scrutiny, governance, and expectations. And even though these changes are designed to drive growth, they do often slow businesses down initially. This shift from an entrepreneurial-owned business to PE-owned does bring overheads, more formalized processes, more rigor, and just businesses aren't accustomed to it, especially where they've just not got experienced leadership that have been through this before, or more commonly, where they've ran too lean leading up to an exit to try and maximize their EBITDA position, and now the bandwidth is really tight and they're fully consumed, just ticking over, not driving growth. So usually we find ourselves this combination of this new overhead and structure and operating too lean creates this weird paradox really that businesses need to move faster to deliver more growth than they ever have before, but they find themselves now sort of bogged down by these new realities, which ultimately makes them shy away from some of these opportunities. And so if we think about the pressure of growth now that comes with a newly invested business, and that's both top line and bottom line growth. And I said earlier, most management teams won't have experienced anything like this before. And in addition to that, this expectation to run lean, to keep optimizing costs while focusing on growth, it's a major adjustment. And what that tends to mean is that just existing teams, they're just stretched too thin. They're trying to juggle day-to-day operations alongside strategic projects, and that just leads to decision-making bottlenecks, and that delays making decisions on execution and ultimately missed opportunities. So the irony here is that this slows down the very growth that they need to accelerate more than ever. The pressure of growth is actually slowing that down. So we believe one of the solutions is not just to push harder, but to maybe think a little bit differently. And we see lots of businesses put the idea of global expansion on the back burner. And for all the things we've just said, then they feel overwhelmed, under-resourced, inexperienced. But we're going to talk to you today about leveraging the right external expertise that expanded into new markets and geographies, it can be the answer to achieving that top line growth and bottom line growth that we're trying to all get our portfolio companies to realize. And so, why is global expansion one of the answers that we should all consider? Well, in the post-COVID era, global expansion, it's no longer reserved for just these large blue chip companies. We're all used to remote working. It then became hybrid working, which in turn spearheaded the growth of this global flexible workforce and borderless talent pools. So businesses have access now to global talent, and it's far easier and in some ways expected now for them to consider global growth and a global talent network. So we've got these macro employment trends that are driving why we should all be considering that global expansion's a major part of our growth strategy within our portfolio companies. So macro trends that come in. We then have a range of valuation opportunities. So selling into multiple markets diversifies revenue streams. It can reduce dependency on a single economy. It creates opportunity, and all of this creates opportunity for value creation. And so expanding globally, it's not just about revenue or the value creation. It starts to transform our businesses, our portfolio companies into market leaders. It repositions them as a serious contender within the industry where we've now got evidence that it's capable of navigating complexities and, and thriving in new environments. And all of those are really important when we think about how we drive EBITDA multiples. And I'm sure you've all got to these stats yourself now, but you can see businesses with an international growth plan, they grow 1.5 times faster. And 70% of businesses realize revenue in the first year. And that's because you already know what you're doing. You already know how to make the widget or sell the service. You just need the regulatory overhead and challenges fixing. And then the next two are all around the target addressable market. And one of the things I see most common, mainly in the UK and North America, is we're guilty of thinking the world stops there sometimes, but over 95% of global consumers sit outside these regions. So we're ignoring a huge part of the target addressable market. So we've got, to summarize why we believe it is the answer, well, we've got macro trends that are driving global expansion from an employment dynamic and the sort of paradigm shift of work. We've then got clear value drivers about de-risking the business, increasing revenue streams, improving out sort of operational sort of diversity. And then we've got data points that are also showing that this actually could be a really strong strategy for our portfolio companies. So, so I guess if the question that pops up now is if the streets are paved with gold, why isn't everybody already done this? Why does every business not just quite simply start to do this? And I guess when we're thinking about this, we try to look at it from both the view of the investor and the non-exec director. And I guess to summarize these into a few different camps. So why are businesses not doing this already? Well, I guess the first thing is inexperience, expanding into unfamiliar markets. It requires navigating different regulatory environments and cultural environments and operational landscapes, and all that's really time consuming. So against the backdrop we just talked about earlier that happens with newly invested businesses, I've now got limited bandwidth, my management team's distracted. It just feels too much of a challenge to take on. The next sort of bucket that they fall into is fear of failing, and under PE ownership, quite often companies fear making mistakes that either reflects poorly on them as a management team or as a strategic advisor. And I myself had a scenario where we had an opportunity to procure an Australian business, and we were right at the end of the excuse me, right at the end of the tenure of our investment cycle, and I just didn't feel confident we wouldn't burn cash, run out of time, and convince the investor that more organic growth would be sensible. Later, when I merged that business with a US firm, in what the owner of the Australian business were the main acquirer had bought both of us, and they realised the synergies. So I've had first-hand experience of how that sort of bandwidth and fear can combine that makes you leave some of these opportunities on the table. And then there's attitude to risk. When we look at entering into new markets, we all think about and worry about potential liabilities and risks that crop up in due diligence processes if we do this badly. So it's, I guess, a fear of the unknown stops as well. So there's huge amounts of opportunities, but actually not many businesses succeed or even attempt it. And these barriers are real, but they're not insurmountable. And with the right guidance and support, we strongly believe that businesses can move forward with confidence and sort of turn these challenges into real opportunities for them as a business. And so, to just summarize some of the points we've been talking about, why do we think global expansion should be a real priority for private equity backed businesses or for non-execs to really push their management teams to consider? And we've talked about, well, entering into new markets, it creates new revenue streams that drives profitability, which is what we're all looking for. It reduces risk for the business because it spreads operations across multiple economic environments. It protects from downturns in just one market. When we then have a global operational infrastructure, we can start to look at streamlining and process synergies in a far different way. And when we have this global and international footprint, it suddenly starts providing us with access to new skills, new talent, and more innovation within our companies that start to fuel growth. And all of those really align perfectly with how we think of the world as investors and strategic advisors. So making global growth a real cornerstone of our strategy, either as a non-exec that's challenging our management team or as an investor, we think will just become increasingly important over the next few years. So how can we help? And I guess I phrase this into sort of chunks of timeline and stages, and really simply, to start off, we just become an extension to the leadership team that we help build the plan. So we have fractional resource that plug into the leadership team. We bring all those skills and experience that management lacks, and we help define the plan. The next thing is we open up this global footprint and talent network that our clients can tap into, where you can start to utilize. So you get more access to more data. And I'll give you a great example of this later on: more people, more ideas. So the business can really focus on the widget that they make, and our teams start to pick up the admin. And once we've got the plan there and we started to sort of introduce a better talent pool, we then eventually merge just to become the outsourced processing center. So we will be the accounts team in the new country that they've expanded to, or that we will be the HR team in the country that they've expanded to. And we just plug in our systems and processes into the HQ and allow those we run the sub-regions and allow them to control it centrally. So it's a complete solution that goes through the evolution of the project and the change management. And I said earlier on as well, it's not just the services that move. All our fees are done on a subscription fee basis. So we're really conscious that one of the issues that prevents global expansion is you start to saddle the balance sheet with heavy investments in personnel, and you need to recruit an FC and a HR manager, and you need to create local boots on the ground. So our subscription fee means they get access to talent that's far more experience than they would have done previously. And the general rule of thumb is it's around 30% cost of the equivalent FTE, our subscription service. So really attractive to sort of preserving that EBITDA margin that we talked about. And we just do that across all professional services, whether that's accounting, tax, payments, banking, HR, global mobility. We same approach, same methodology. So I'll give you a give you a case study, a real life example, and this was actually brought to us by a non-exec director who actually works with us on a semi-fractional on basis. And they'd recently been appointed to the board of a company and begin to challenge the management on the scope of the target addressable market. Why this product's doing well? Why are we just selling it in the UK? And all those blockers that I referred to earlier on existed. Day-to-day operations, just too time consuming. Nobody has the experience to take this on. We're going to spend too much money, burn cash, and don't want to look foolish in front of the new investors. And we were able to take this opportunity and really sort of break it down into key deliverables. So the first is the planning stage, so working with the leadership team. As an extension to them, we built this great business case for the investors where we used all our experience and we brought some fractional resource in to do that. And once we could start to really see a tangible strategic plan, we were then able to pivot to be a little bit more of a fractional resource. So we started to work with the finance teams where we built detailed forecast models and we built detailed costing plans and MI about how we sort of report on the progress of this. So now management had this plan that the investors had gained real confidence in. And then the sort of HQ teams, the finance teams, now had a real sort of aligned process, procedure, oversight, agreed MI. And at this stage, I think that the non-exec director got to drop the mic and give them the big "I told you so" to his original challenge, as it started to prove out that this was a real idea, real traction, and real opportunity. And so we then moved to execution stage. We're creating local company entities. We're taking on the compliance and the filing responsibilities, and we're helping them and removing the need for them to hire locally. And then we just repeated that in HR, and we repeated it in payroll, and now we were able to do something else for this particular business, which is probably a little unusual, but we also have a very well-known whiskey distillery business that we support. So we were able to help them with a whole host of distribution and logistic channel by plugging into that network of 3,000 businesses we've helped before. So um, this company who had no idea not only got the outsourced knowledge here, it got a business in a very, very aligned sector where we were able to give them specific advice and feedback as well. So you tap into those 3,000 people that have gone on this journey before. And so that sort of brings the sort of whistle-stop tour of sort of set the scene that newly invested businesses go off plan, and it just happens. Everybody runs too lean going up to an investment opportunity. There's a new overhead and everybody's really distracted. There's always a growth plan, which is slightly unrealistic. Whether or not as investors you've sort of accounted for that slightly different, but management will never run as fast as what needs to happen. And at times the management team can be inexperienced as well. And so we've got this sort of problem, this overhead that's been created. And then from the external perspective, we've got global expansion, which is now being driven by macro employment trends and businesses tapping into global talent networks everywhere. And we believe that the benefits of global expansion, real benefits really outweigh the challenges, and it can really help drive that top line growth and bottom line growth. And really important to choose the right partner when you do this. Clearly, we'd love to speak to anybody that fits the mold and has these types of opportunities, but I guess the overarching neutral advice to this is just plugging yourself into a support network that can really, really help take these problems away. So I hope that was useful. Tried to take you on a journey there of why it's important, why it doesn't happen, what are the services we can do to accelerate and can bring to the sort of virtual non-exec network. And if there are any questions, it'd be more than happy to field them now or to drop them into Sarah, and we can pick them up at a later time.
Yeah, we've got a few that have come in, Andrew, but if anyone has got any that they want to pop in, or equally we can answer them offline after. Um, so first one that has come in is, do you have any examples or proof of helping balance growth opportunities across multiple portfolio companies simultaneously? A lot going on
Y-
there.
Yeah. So I guess really that would only be a problem if there was resource shared across those portfolio companies. So if an investor was deploying the same resource in multiple portfolio companies, I
Yeah,
could understand how that would be a bit of a constraint. Um, we do work with investors where we're looking at global growth for multiple of their portfolio companies because each business is different. We would deploy a different set of our people based on the sector expertise that are required. So we could definitely do it. I wonder if that question's where there's maybe an operating partner that sits on multiple companies that would need that. But yes, we have lots of experience of doing that.
okay, another one that's come in is, how do your outsourced solutions help control costs compared to building in-house capabilities?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, outsourcing isn't a new concept, and businesses go through waves of insourcing, then they outsource, then they insource, and they outsource again. And that cyclical approach to me shows it's all about the implementation of it. There will be a plethora of business cases that show that insourcing was the right answer, and there'll be a plethora of business cases that show that outsourcing was the right answer. I guess in the field of global expansion here, if let's do a real life example. If it was Andrew and Sarah Enterprises and we were opening our first New York office and we wanted to hire somebody to recruit staff, so we hired a HR administrator, we'd be really worried about the cost. So we might go and spend 40, $50,000 on a HR administrator. Using a Briars type subscription service, you get access to $150,000 a year experienced HR director because you're plugging into them fractionally when you need them.
Yeah,
And so you're only paying for it when you need. That's less pressure on the balance sheet. It's more empathetic to preserving EBITDA.
yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. Okay, there's a couple more. If we've got, I think we've got time for a few more. So, how does successful global expansion contribute to making a portfolio company more attractive to potential buyers when exiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered quite a bit of that, but I think if we look at it from a risk perspective, if this business is spreading its revenue over multiple geographies and political environments, then it can stand up there and say we're de-risked compared to our localized competitors. And the same from a revenue perspective, if the revenue is coming in from multiple different sources, then that really helps de-risk as well.
Yeah. No. One or two more. What should I look for in assessing whether the management team is capable and prepared for the complexities of international operations? Again, you've
Yeah.
kind of covered it.
I mean that's really hard, isn't it? Because there will be people that haven't achieved global expansion yet, but probably could if they were given the opportunity to do it. So some of it's a little subjective, but I would always say there is no substitute for dropping in a range of personnel that have definitely done this before. And that's what our fractional services are there for. The management team will know the business best. They'll understand operations. They'll understand how the business scales better. But those local nuances, regulatory nuances, cultural nuances are a huge one that businesses get wrong. We're able to support with. So my advice would be even if you do have people that are probably capable of doing it, I would always complement them with people that have actually done it and do it all the time because it's a huge costly mistake if you get it wrong.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one I think is, what role do you play? I think they mean you. In ensuring product services and operations are properly localized for target markets.
Yeah. And ultimately we're an outsourced professional services advisor, so we can take a view, we can help with things like transfer pricing, and we can help with things like VAT, and But this is where the value of our network comes in. That so many businesses in so many sectors we can pull on advice and experience for. So we can help from a professional services perspective. But like the example we use with the whiskey distillery business, helping one of the gin competitor almost of theirs, it was just a great way of doing that. So we can definitely help from a sort of accounting perspective, but from a strategic perspective and an almost how it will resonate with the local market. Just there's 3 decades worth of experience. There's not a sector that we've not got experience in that will be able to help facilitate introductions and plug people into.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's great. I think that's all of the questions that we've got. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. This is
Thank
going
you.
to go out on an email to everyone, so everyone watch it back again, and we will obviously pop all of your contact details in that email so people can reach out to you directly. But thank you ever so much for your time today,
No,
Andrew. Really appreciate
thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks, Sarah.
it. Thank you ever so much. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.